A couple of months ago, you did a fair amount of press about a portrait, a painting of Jesus Christ that you had placed prominently in a meeting area of the Academy. And you had said that you were taking it out of the basement and putting it into a place of prominence.
We are moving Jesus out of the basement. To all the great midshipmen at the Merchant Marine Academy, you let me know how important this painting was to all of you. Now, we all know it was taken out of a place of prominence and put in down in the basement. I worked with the Academy, and because this is such a historic painting, I'm announcing that through that work with the Academy, this painting is going to go from the basement back to its place of prominence. It'll be a moment to celebrate.
So I want to ask you a little bit about that, and I believe you've put a copy of the same painting in your personal office. So I want you to know I have no problem with you decorating your office the way you want. I understand your Catholic faith is very central to you. Your office is yours to decorate in any way you want. But I'm troubled by this notion of this place of prominence in a room, in this case, the Elliott M.C. room at the Academy, which is the place where they have mandatory meetings, where they have honor code hearings, disciplinary hearings for cadets. And I guess I want to just ask you, overseeing an institution that is multicultural, that is secular, that is a public institution, what kind of message do you think that sends to the cadets who may not be Christian, may not be religious, or might be part of a Christian sect that objects to the kind of portrait that you've placed in that position of prominence?
I would just note that we have the freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. And this painting was in this place of prominence for, I believe, 70 years. And it was folded up and moved to the basement.
So the basement was a chapel. It was put into the chapel by your predecessor, not put away to be hidden in a basement, right? That's misleading, Mr.
So it was folded up and put in the basement of the chapel.
It was refurbished and then placed in a position in the chapel, but it was also, the history, Mr. Secretary, you know this, I think, it started out in a chapel. This is a painting that started out in a chapel.
They actually folded the painting up, and now it's being restored. It has to be unfolded to put back in its place of prominence. This is Christ on the water. These are sailors, and it has a lot of history within the Merchant Marine Academy, and I love your attention to this Christ on the water photo, but I think this Congress, and it's not in your body, but this is the most...
So what's the message to Jews and Muslims and Hindus and non-religious folks?
We all live together. Listen,
in their disciplinary proceedings.
We all accept everyone's religion, and this is a painting. We don't. I don't know if you have any anti-Semites here. I don't think you do. I hope not.
You don't think the Establishment Clause prohibits favoring a single religion over all others?
Listen, this is a historic painting.
It historically was in a chapel.
It's a historic painting. And I have no objection to it being moved. I have actually called for it to be taken out of the basement and put back in its place of prominence.
Mr. Secretary,
let me just,
you also have put birth rates and marriage rates for the first time into transportation funding formulas. Is that policy, or is that
you have midshipmen that are eating off of paper plates and using plastic forks that didn't have hot water for 4 months. So if you want to talk about the Merchant Marine Academy, let's look at how these poor midshipmen have been served by the Congress in the last DOT.
You promised them more funding in your speech to the cadets. How's that going?
They deserve more money, and I need that money from all of you. And I hope you give me the $1.5 billion that's necessary to make this a state-of-the-art academy. But not having hot water for 4 months, that should be what you're concerned about. You don't have paper plates,
and
you should be
maybe
concerned about
respect
that.
the First Amendment while you deliver hot water,
you should be concerned
Mr.
about
Secretary.
that.
We have a First Amendment for a reason. This Republican majority thinks that it works for President Trump, as opposed to being an independent branch of government that serves as a check on power. And so we see endless attempts to curry favor, to kiss up. And of course, the quintessence of that is the bill before us today.
The Gulf of America Act would rename the body of water formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. The Secretary of Interior, acting through the chairman of the U.S. Board of Geographic Names, would oversee the implementation of the renaming. On his first day back in office, President Trump signed Executive Order 14172, entitled restoring names that honor American greatness.
Stephen Colbert proposed this as a joke in 2010, and it's important to remember what was going on at the time, what led to the joke. There was a blown BP oil well that gushed oil for many, many weeks and months, killed 11 people, crushed the coastal economy of the Gulf, and Colbert used the name change as a gimmick to raise awareness of the disaster that dragged on for 5 months, something our Republican friends seem to have forgotten about as they advance their dirty drilling agenda. It is weirdly appropriate that they are taking what started out as a joke and actually moving it forward as part of their drill baby drill agenda, and unfortunately that means the joke is on us. I just want to follow up on the questions about the Border Patrol detentions in an active firefighting zone. I've read reports that 44 crew were interrogated, a couple were detained, and I'm just not clear as to the involvement of you and your agency. I mean, you are part of incident command in a project like that, in a setting like that, correct?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, yes. That was a Forest Service fire. In incident command, the team was not a Forest Service team that was there, but we have a liaison as a part of the incident.
And is it your testimony that no one in your agency knew about this or signed off on it?
No, I think the question specifically was, did we authorize that action? Or I think that was the question. So
Yeah, I'm not, I wouldn't think you would authorize it, but I'm wondering, did you know about it?
So the night before, there was a heads up that there was going to be, someone was going to be checking some validation of credentials the night before. Yes, sir.
So you signed off on this Border Patrol enforcement action in an active firefighting project?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, no, there was no signing off. There was a notification. There was no signing off.
Did you or anyone else in the Forest Service object to it? To 44 crew members being held up in the middle of an active firefight so that the Border Patrol can look for people to deport?
I'm unaware of any objections.
Does it trouble you? I mean, is that something that you want to see in active firefights on your watch?
So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, currently those were contract crews, and there's a requirement in our contracts that everyone who is contracted with is supposed to be doing that validation. The Forest Service does not validate those crew members.
That's not my question. I mean, there are ways to do that validation that don't disrupt an active firefight. My question is, how do you feel about Border Patrol or ICE or anyone else doing immigration enforcement in the middle of an active firefight on your land under your watch? Is that a good idea?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, what I can tell you is that the responsibility for that action is a border security issue.
That's not my question, Mr. Chief. With all due respect, I'm asking how you feel about it. Is that something you want to see Border Patrol or ICE doing on your land, on your watch in the middle of an active firefight? And it's a pretty straightforward question.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, that's something that we want to continue communication on how those actions are taken.
Will you object to this going forward in the future?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, what I would need to do is learn more about their goals, and we would need to have more discussion about this. But I'm not going to say emphatically that I would object or that I wouldn't object. I don't have enough information.
You don't have a position on whether it's a good idea or
I
not?
don't have a position.
Are you worried that it will impact people's willingness to work on fighting fires?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, I think a couple things. One, when it comes to Forest Service employees, we validate everybody who works for the agency. So I don't anticipate there being any issues. And when it comes to contract crews, there already is a requirement in our contracts that people be validated by their employer.
You don't think there's any risk of a chilling effect when dozens of people are pulled out of a firefight and interrogated by Border Patrol or other law enforcement? You don't think that has a chilling effect on people's participation as firefighters?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, I'm not going to speculate on what people might feel or not feel.
Chair Westerman, would you accept allowing judicial review if the population drops below 20% in a year, perhaps? Would that be just, if the gentleman would let us know? I mean, we're looking for something here, some common ground to provide a backstop if this becomes law. Would you agree to that?
Well, I don't think it's my It's not my legislation, and
Would the
it's not my
gentlelady
act.
agree to that? Just a little bit of a safety net here in case she's wrong about? It is my time, but I'm asking you yes or no. Would you accept a backstop of 20% decline in any year?
Well, didn't we just bring a wolf back that was here 10,000 years ago? So, I mean, if it really gets that bad, you know, we could just bring woolly mammoths back and all this
Oh,
stuff.
boy.
so.
Okay, well, that's a deeply unserious response to what should be a very
Look,
serious
we have worked on this time and time again, and rogue judges overturn the administration after administration's ruling.
Understand, and
It's
reclaiming my
unfounded.
time, because I did hear the gentlelady make that point. I don't see why there wouldn't be some level of a safety net that my friends across the aisle would agree to. That's all this amendment is trying to get at, and we can't even get a straight answer about whether 10, 20, 30% decline in any single year could at least trigger some kind of judicial review. You know, I think it says a lot that as we have wasted the last hour of Congress's time on a deeply unserious bill to rename the Gulf of Mexico, Republicans have offered just one speaker in support of this preposterous piece of legislation, this monumental disaster, this insult to the American people, and this giant middle finger to the rest of the world. The only speaker to speak in support of this was the gentlelady from Georgia, and I think that just tells us an awful lot.
You see, the American people aren't afraid of renaming the Gulf of America, because the American people want to take pride in our land and our waters once again. And as Democrats feign an outrage today at the president and his executive order and our great audacity to rename the Gulf of America, it was the Democrats who first tried to rename an institution after Donald Trump. In 2024, Rep. Connolly tried to rename a prison after Donald Trump, and that happened while the Democrats were waging lawfare like this country has never seen before and should never see again, as they were trying to lock up President Donald Trump and put him in prison for the rest of his life for lies and attacks and purely for politics.
You know, the American people think that Congress should do real work, and there's plenty of real work to be done. Americans are watching their 401ks in free fall from this president's reckless tariff games, tariff chaos that is happening by using Congress's Article 1 Trade and Commerce Authority. And what is this Congress doing about it? Worse than nothing. They've tied their own hands, because in their government funding bill, they created the gimmick of a never-ending legislative day to prevent them from using their emergency authorities to put some sensible sideboards on Donald Trump's tariff madness. In the district right next to mine, in Napa County, the Trump administration abruptly canceled a $50 million wildfire prevention grant just 4 months after one of the deadliest wildfires in California history. And that's been the story throughout the West. Critical funding, a critical need for firefighters and for projects that make us safer from wildfire, in total chaos or canceled because of this madness with Elon Musk and Doge and an unhinged president. And what do we hear from our colleagues across the aisle? Nothing. We get bills like this to rename the Gulf of Mexico. Tribal communities are being hammered around the country. Food insecurity programs are being defunded. Education programs frozen. Healthcare resources slashed. And all the while, the administration continues to fire essential agency scientists, public servants en masse, and this Republican Congress shrugs. The majority is wasting time on an ego-driven rebrand, a performative stunt rooted in President Trump's imperial edict, absurdly titled, "Restoring Names That Honor American Greatness." You know, this is so obviously what authoritarians through history have done. They do things like call for parades on their own birthday, or rename things, or do other stunts to distract the American people from the way they're lining their own pockets and taking away fundamental rights. And this Republican Congress
appears to be perfectly fine with that. You know, a new CNN national poll shows the majority of Americans believe Congress is not doing enough to check this president's actions. Nearly half say the current administration is weakening our democracy, our economy, and our global standing. And this bill really is Exhibit A. We're not just renaming a gulf, we're drowning public trust in what this institution is supposed to do: serve the people, solve problems, defend democracy. And yes, this bill has been called a joke more than once in committee. I even offered an amendment to rename the entire planet Trump, just to underscore the absurdity of their sycophantic bootlicking. But now, after seeing this bill advance not only through committee, but all the way through to the House floor for a final vote, it's getting a little bit harder to laugh, because it's not a joke anymore. It's a case study in misplaced priorities. When you start erasing or changing phrases like climate change, equity, or disadvantaged communities from government websites, when you ban them from scientific reports, you're not just playing word games, you're dismantling our capacity to even name the problems we face, let alone fix them, but we're renaming bodies of water. Mr. Speaker, we're about to open the roll. And as we watch the red and green light up on the big board, I think it's going to be a pretty good proxy for which members of Congress still think that we should be doing serious work, that we should be reclaiming our Article I responsibilities under the Constitution, that we should have a little bit of dignity in the face of a deeply unserious bill that has wasted our time, and which members of Congress are simply bending the knee to Donald Trump and stroking one man's ego in everything they do. I yield back.
Members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities towards the president.
Mr. Associate Director, I want to ask you about this process that is now underway of screening and removing, censoring history. I have great admiration for your agency and for the dedicated folks, yourself included, that have spent so many years telling the American story to millions of people. It's an incredibly important thing. And of course, the historians and curators and other professionals who've dedicated their careers to the accurate retelling of our nation's history do incredibly important work. But I'm concerned that their professionalism may not matter anymore. We have it on good information from Park Service personnel that at Fort Pulaski National Monument, this iconic photo of the reality, the cruelty of slavery was ordered removed. And I suspect that if it happened at that national monument, it's happened elsewhere. So I guess I want to start, Mr. Caldwell, by asking you why someone at the Park Service would direct the removal of a photo like this.
Thank you for your question. First, I would just emphasize that the implementation of the Secretary order is still underway, as you recall. And the important element of that secretarial order is public input and public participation. And so signage is available that have visitors let us know about what they see, what might need to be repaired.
So is that what led to this? Did a visitor ask that it come down?
In terms of specifics, in terms of what's being asked or what has been turned in, I think what I would recommend is a follow-up with specific questions related to specific
I'm going to be
units.
very specific. Who issued that order?
I have not been involved in issuing any secretarial orders related to this one.
Do you know
but I
of
think
an order?
our committee can certainly get back, or
Do you
we can get
know
back to the
anything
committee.
about the order that led to the removal of this
Other
photo?
than just in general what I have read, both in the media as well as in the
How do you feel about
department.
it as a career Park Service person? Should a photo like this ever be censored and removed from American history?
Well, I'm certainly proud of my 30-plus years
Yeah.
in the National Park Service.
So how do you feel about it?
Having served in many sites across the country, we're implementing the secretarial order.
You're not going to answer my question.
And the department, to my knowledge, has not instructed anyone to remove content about slavery.
Yeah, you're wrong about that because this really did happen. So I urge you to look into it. But let me ask you about the process. Who is making this determination of which exhibits, which photographs, which documents, somehow fail to uplift America in a way that makes Stephen Miller and Donald Trump happy? Who at the Park Service?
There's a separate process involved and a separate team that's working throughout the National Park Service. And I think our team there could get back to the committee and your staff in terms of any specific requests you have on that process.
I would welcome that. Are there guidelines about how they are making this inherently subjective determination?
The only deadlines that I have seen might be related to the secretarial order, but once again, I'm not involved in the implementation of the secretarial order, so if those have changed, I'm unaware, but we can get back to you on that.
And you will give us the standards and guidelines that whoever is doing this scrub of history is using? That seems like something that Congress should know about.
I certainly can relay your concerns to the folks that are implementing the secretarial order, and we will get back to you and your staff.
I would hope so. And of course, it's going to take some resources to do all of this sanitizing of American history. So where is that funding coming from?
I think this, while certainly not a budget hearing, we follow the administration's priorities on our budget. We trust the judgment and the job that our field staff are doing, and
Where does the money come
adjust
from?
those priorities.
Is this coming from other programs and mission-critical activities that we fund?
I'm not aware of
Mr.
any.
Caldwell, you
I'm
may
not
answer that. You may answer that question. The gentleman's time has expired, but go ahead and answer the question.
Okay. I'm not aware of any programmatic shifts of money to specifically address this secretarial order, but once again, we can get back to you with specifics.
Thank you. I
Thank
yield
you.
back.
Gentleman yields. I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes for questioning. First of all, I'll start out by asking for unanimous consent. From the Hill, Interior says it has not been asked to remove scourged back photo. Enter that without objection. I would just add, I would be careful on the other side in regards to talking about erasing history after watching the 4 years of the Biden administration, and with statues and monuments that could be deemed controversial that were removed. But that is history. As the ranking member said, it is controversial at times, and we should not whitewash it. But what we saw in the previous 4 years to the Trump administration was an erasing of history. And the second thing I would add, the party that I belong to and the president belongs to was formed in 1854 to end slavery. It was the original single-issue party that was put in place to end slavery. And we accomplished that in the United States of America. And we still stand by that as Republicans, believing that we should be a colorblind society. I know it is one of the fundamental tenets that I believe in.
Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Chairman, does that include, President Trump suggesting retroactively that Lincoln should have cut a deal?
Mr. Zinn, in
Your
regards-
party
you
now is
said
not
you
the
went-
party of 1854.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Is that part of your statement, or is this a UC request? That's why I just want to make sure the clock is, this is your time.
This is my time.
Okay, I yield back.
Yeah, the clock's running.
It was not initially, so that's why I wasn't
Is there
sure
some
if
time
that-
I should give up?
No, it's fine. You can proceed. I just want to make sure that we weren't.
Because I'd happy to give up. And without objection in regards to the unanimous consent, we will enter that into the record.
Democrats are outraged today because they are America last, and they hate anything that would give the American people pride. The Gulf of America is one of the most important things that we can do this Congress. This is an executive order written by the President of the United States, which, by the way, is president today because the American people rose up and voted against a Democrat party that was completely America last. Americans have watched Congress week in and week out rename post offices. Democrats vote for it all the time. Democrats aren't afraid to rename anything. They've been renaming military bases because they hate our history and hate our heritage. This is also the same Democrat Party that cheered when their ground troops, Antifa, and radical rioters went throughout American cities and tore down statues like Lincoln and Washington. The Democrat Party doesn't want to preserve America's rich history or promote pride in our country, our lands, our people, our businesses, and yes, our waters, the Gulf of America.
The gentlelady from Georgia is right about one thing. Democrats are outraged because as this president is crashing the global economy, careening us into recession, destroying retirement plans and 401ks, driving up costs for American families on everything from cars to eggs to now us being told we may have to ration toys and dolls this Christmas. As all of that is happening, he's using Congress's Article I Trade and Commerce Authority to do it. And what do you hear from Republicans across the aisle about this thing that is wrecking the lives of so many American families? Nothing, worse than nothing. They've tied their own hands with a gimmicky bill that they passed to create a false legislative day that never ends so that they can't even invoke Congress's Article I Trade Authority and put some sensible sideboards on this trade and tariff policy. It is madness. So the gentlelady's right. We are outraged.
I rise in support of H.R. 276, sponsored by Congresswoman Green of Georgia. Throughout the history of the United States, the executive branch has renamed our public lands and waters. This legislation codifies a portion of President Trump's Executive Order 14172, which directed the Board on Geographic Names to rename the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America. President Trump signed this executive order on his first day in office. Enacting this legislation will help make President Trump's historic action permanent and ensure consistency in references to laws, maps, regulations, and records of the United States. The Gulf of America is critical to the United States because of its energy resources and ecological significance. This renaming symbolizes Republicans' commitment to putting America first and honors the Gulf of America's important role in unleashing American energy and our nation's return to greatness. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I call this a deeply unserious bill, I think I'm probably being charitable. It is unserious, and it comes from a Republican majority that is either unable or unwilling to do the real work of Congress. In the first disastrous 100 days of President Trump's second term in office, we have seen him sow chaos and distraction in every direction. This deeply corrupt and unhinged leader has put his biggest campaign donor and the wealthiest man in the world in charge of slashing programs that millions of Americans depend on, from food assistance to nuclear safety to disaster response, all in the name of quote-unquote efficiency. They have indiscriminately fired thousands of federal workers like this is some dystopian reboot of The Apprentice, except in this episode, they're filling the government with unqualified sycophants, and they're running around firing meteorologists and health experts and emergency responders, people who keep our government running. And today, in the face of all of that, all of this chaos that our Republican colleagues don't want to talk about, at least we're hearing them engage in some debate over this unserious bill about renaming the Gulf of Mexico, which I suppose is an improvement, because for the past couple of weeks in the markup hearings on their disastrous budget reconciliation bill, they've been unwilling to debate it all. It's just been silence from our Republicans as they move through one of the most reckless bills in American history, the same silence as they duck their constituents by canceling town halls and avoiding media inquiries. So instead of debating that very important and destructive legislation, they are speaking up today about this deeply unserious bill to rename a body of water. We wish that our Republican colleagues would join us in asking the question that's on more and more Americans' mind. What the heck is going on? This administration is not draining the swamp. They're torching the country. The global economy is in chaos. We are teetering on the brink of recession. Administration officials are telling us we should perhaps prepare to ration dolls and toys this Christmas, and yet they want to debate renaming the Gulf of Mexico. You know, a Congress that more and more appears to just be a joke is now advancing a bill that literally started off as a joke. That's right, the first person to publicly suggest the name change was not Donald Trump or the author of this bill. It was comedian Stephen Colbert on Comedy Central. It was a joke back when the Deepwater Horizon oil spill was happening. And you remember, folks, that 11 people died in that disaster. Entire ecosystems collapsed. The Louisiana coast was wrecked, along with industries and livelihoods that depend on that Gulf Coast ecosystem, all devastated. And Colbert used the fake name Gulf of America to satirize the absurdity of oil-soaked nationalism. And now here we are, 15 years later, in a Congress that apparently thinks they have no real work to do, turning a late-night punchline into the legislative business of the United States House. Look, I would love to say this is just a one-off, but it fits a disturbing trend. Again and again, this majority keeps replacing science with slogans, governance with grievance, and policymaking with cheap performance art. The truth is, this bill won't fix a single problem. It does absolutely nothing to help the Gulf Coast. It won't create a single job. It's not going to fix our climate crisis. It's just dumb. The only thing this bill will do is waste time and your taxpayer dollars to stroke the ego of a guy who sharpied a hurricane map on live TV. Now, in committee, I offered an amendment that would actually advance the value of efficiency. Because, you know, if this is all about stroking the ego of one man, if it's all about cultish sycophancy, why do it in a piecemeal way with all these individual bills to put his face on Mount Rushmore and on the $100 bill? We actually have legislation from folks across the aisle to do all these things, to rename Dulles Airport, to do national holidays. Why not go all the way? We know that's where this is all heading anyway, since everything is in service of one man's fragile ego. So why not rename the entire planet Trump? At least that would be efficient. We would hurry up and get to the inevitable outcome of where this Republican Congress is taking us. But look, if you like this unserious bill, there's another deal for you, because Eric and Don Jr. are selling Gulf of America hats on their website for $50 a pop. One hat even says Gulf of America, yet another Trump development. And the sales pitch for one includes, and I quote, "as seen on President Donald J. Trump." And get your meme coin while you're at it. And remember, all of these grifts are for a limited time. They won't last much longer. The American people deserve much, much better, folks. A recent Fox News poll, yes, Fox, showed that a big majority opposes the name change for the Gulf of Mexico. 67%. Americans know a joke when they see one, even if this Republican Congress doesn't. I reserve the balance of my time.